All right, so welcome to your yoga mat. My name is Elisa, and tonight we are going to do a core strengthening practice. And not just core strengthening, but attention to the core. So basically all the things that we want for our core. Strength, mobility, flexibility, and in general, when I think of the core, one of my teachers said this, and I like to think of this as well. It's everything from shoulders to knees, front and back. So it's not just our abs. We tend to really focus on, having a six pack or what our belly looks like, but your core is so much more than that. So we're going to focus on all those areas and we'll get started. So finding yourself in a position with feet about hip bone distance apart, coming into mountain pose, roll the shoulders, maybe a few times, letting go of any tightness or tension from the day. Maybe a few times back, and then a few times forward. So already taking care of some tension and tightness in the core, so remembering about our shoulders. And then one more roll back, so we'll inhale up, exhale back and down, letting the palms face forward, fingertips reaching down towards the earth. We'll make sure we have at least a little bit of a bend in our knees. We want to check those knees. And if it's available to you today, you can close your eyes, or if you'd rather, you can just let your gaze come down towards the ground. Settling into this position of strength and power. We can check in, first starting with our feet, four corners of each foot pressing into the earth, maybe giving the toes a little wiggle. Feeling the arches drawing away from the ground. So that's going to help with that lift. So we're going to draw everything up. So thinking about the front of the body drawing up, the thighs firming, inner thighs drawing in towards each other, pelvic floor drawing in and up, creating Mula Bandha, root lock. And then we'll zip up the front of the torso, getting taller. So keeping the chin modestly tucked. And then as we come back down the back of the body, think about still getting that alignment. So shoulders above hips, hips above knees, knees above ankles. And remembering that this isn't just like you're standing in line at the grocery store. This has a lot of power. This has a lot of force in it. So feeling your power, feeling into your power in mountain pose. Noticing any other sensations in your body that you might need to be aware of for the practice that we're about to go through, and always honoring and listening to the messages of your body. So if your body's asking for a little more activity, a little more energy, honoring that. If your body's asking for maybe a little more gentle practice, honoring that. We'll just begin to allow the breath to flow in and flow out through the nose. And as we inhale, we'll expand the chest, the ribs, all the way down to the belly. And then as we exhale, emptying from the belly, the ribs, and the chest. We'll call that our three-part breath. Inhaling, expanding, again, chest, ribs, belly. Exhaling, emptying the belly, the ribs, and then the chest. Continuing to flow just like that. As we allow the breath to flow in and flow out, just like waves crashing on the shore, one after another. Setting your intention for our practice, whatever it is that you most want to cultivate, whether it's creating strength or flexibility, maybe a sense of calm or ease. Remember, we can take that same intention, that sankalpa or resolve with us off the yoga mat as well. When you're ready, you can allow the eyes to gently blink open. And we're going to start moving with the breath. We're going to move through our sun breath. Inhaling, scooping the arms out, and they can come up just as high as you want, however high. And then exhaling down. You can create a circle with the arms, you can come up to shoulder height, or maybe cactus arms, honoring any messages in your shoulders, the neck, so you might choose to look up at your hands, following your hands with the gaze of the eyes. And the real importance here is the breath. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing with the arms. The importance is that we're matching breath to movement. So every time we inhale, we open and expand. And then as we exhale, we let the arms come back towards the body. So we could even let the arms come back down through center. The most important part of our practice always is the breath. So letting the breath lead, paying attention to the messages of our breath. So if our breath ever gets a little bit labored, or maybe we start holding our breath throughout the practice, knowing that maybe we're trying a little bit too hard, and we can pull back a little bit and come to a more gentle position, a more gentle way of moving. So we'll do just one more round of our sun breath. Inhaling, expanding, exhaling, hands come back to the heart. And we're going to add in our lateral flexion. So thinking about the spine, remembering everything from shoulder to knees. You want to inhale, right arm up, the left hand can come to the hip, or maybe somewhere along the thigh, or even reaching towards the knee. Exhale, we'll lower that arm down. Inhale, the opposite arm. So we're reaching in two different directions, creating space on one side of the torso while the other side gets a little bit of a contraction. Exhaling down. So again, we're moving with our breath. So you might speed up or slow down the pace of the movement. No, you don't need to keep pace with me. And as you move, just paying attention to what you're feeling in the body. So maybe you're feeling that little bit of a side crunch. So a lot of times we think about getting on our backs, laying on the floor to do core work, but this is engaging the core as we're moving here. So getting that side crunch on one side and the opening on the other side. And when we open on the opposite side, that's really a great way to release heat from the body. So especially because today's been a little bit warmer, you might be feeling a buildup of heat. When we come to side opening positions like this, it helps the body to dissipate the excess heat. So that's also really good for things like hot flashes, just having spicy food. So maybe one or two more times until you feel balance between both sides of your body, feeling that spine start to wake up. And then thinking about the spine a little bit more, we're going to come to a little bit of a twist. We're going to do a really gentle twist. So we'll take our feet about maybe shoulder width or a little wider. We're just going to let the arms fling. So almost as if you had your arms out of a sweater or a jacket, and you're just letting your arm sleeves, your sleeves tap your back pockets. And so as I do this little twist here, you can keep both feet planted, or if you'd like, you can start to move the feet a little bit, letting the toes come up. And if you want to turn your gaze, that's okay. Or if you want to keep your gaze more forward, maybe keep your feet planted once again, you can do that. But we're noticing now we're warming up, especially into the spine in the lower back, in the lumbar region. And we'll finish that up, so slowing down your twist, coming back to face the front. And I'm going to make my way to the top of my mat, so you might already be there. And coming back into that mountain pose with feet about hip-bone distance apart. We'll inhale, circle sweeping the arms up, letting our palms come together, fingertips are touching, maybe looking up or looking forward if that feels better to the neck. As we exhale, we're going to hinge at the hips. So almost as if we're taking flight, or we're Superman here, or maybe even airplane pose. And then we'll come all the way down into that forward fold, letting our hands touch the ground, or maybe come to our yoga blocks or our shins. Keeping the knees bent a lot here. So especially since we're just warming up, our hamstrings might be tight. So if you're feeling any tightness in the backs of the legs or the lower back, bending the knees even more. Just letting the belly rest here. And then tracing our fingertips on the floor, swaying side to side like a ragdoll. From here, we're going to plant our hands. We're going to step back. You have the choice of stepping back into downward facing dog or child's pose. Yogi's choice. Wherever you landed, you can add some movement or you can stay still. Maybe you've been stationary most of the day and you need a little bit of movement for your body. You might even be in child's pose, swaying side to side for the hips, or you could be walking your dog like I am. Honoring what the body needs in this moment. So wherever you are, whether it's child's pose or downward facing dog, we're going to make our way into tabletop. So we can move through cat and cow. Placing hands directly underneath the shoulders and knees under hips, making any adjustments so that you're comfortable. So that could be fists for wrists or blankets under the knees. And we're just going to move with that breath, inhaling to extend forward, exhaling, grounding, one vertebra at a time, letting your gaze come in towards the belly button. And then inhaling, again, extending forward, gaze forward, or we can maybe look just a few feet in front of us on the floor. Again, moving with your breath, matching breath to movement or movement to breath. And then we'll all come back into a child's pose, letting the forehead rest on the ground, or if you'd like, placing a block or the backs of the hands underneath the forehead if it doesn't make it all the way down to the ground. Observing any sensations in the sacrum, lower back, or anything else that might be coming up for you in this position. So remembering, child's pose is always a place that we can come to anytime we need to, or actually any pose that feels restful for you. Some people don't like child's pose. Maybe this is too intense on the knees or the low back, and you feel more restful in tabletop. So you stay there and hang out instead. So from here, we're getting ready to move some more. So we'll bring our knees back into alignment with our hips. And we're getting ready to start our half series vinyasa. So we'll inhale forward. Again, you might stop in tabletop and then exhale back into child's pose. So that's our first option. We can try that a few times, see how that feels. This is a great way to start out your morning if you're feeling a little tight. Actually, it's just a great way to start moving in the morning. And even after a long day, it's totally good. You can stay here, or if you'd like, we can come forward into a kneeling plank. Remember, in kneeling plank, we want to make sure we're not sagging or drooping in our middle. So we want to have strength in a straight line from shoulders to knees. So rather than, I'm going to show you what would be unhelpful for the spine. So please don't do that. And then we'll exhale back into child's pose. So inhaling forward with strength, pushing the floor away from us. Creating strength in the arms here as well. We're getting some strength in the arms, the chest, as well as the abdomen. We'll move through that a couple times. Remembering, if you'd like to stay at that version where you come forward to tabletop, you can do that. And then only if you are really feeling the stability in your core, then maybe adding in our crocodile push-up. So you can come down halfway and then push up, or you can lower all the way. And then another trick that you have, or another option, is to use a block. And you can place that block about chest level, and then exhale coming down onto the block, and then pushing up from there. So there's always a way to modify or to make it fit your body and how you're feeling today. Remember, you might want to come all the way down to the floor for the push-up, and then placing those hands next to the chest, using your strength, pushing up and back. So there's no right or wrong for this half series vinyasa. And remembering, anytime you have an option for vinyasa, you can use one of these choices. You could add in downward facing dog or an upward facing dog. Upward facing dog can sometimes be a tricky position for some people. And sometimes it's not the safest position. So if you're already feeling challenged in these options, then just staying here. Remembering there's no right or wrong. So it's not like you have to go into an upward facing dog and risk injuring yourself. So we're going to come into our child's pose one more time. Checking in, noticing what's happening in the body as we've been warming up, and maybe you're feeling quite warm on this day. And then from here, we're going to tuck the toes under, lifting into a downward facing dog. We'll inhale, looking to the hands, drawing that navel to spine, and as we exhale, walking the feet up to meet the hands. Inhaling, rising, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, hands come to the heart. So we're going to start moving through some Zen salutations. And remembering when we get to the place where you have an option for Vinyasa, you can do one of the ones we just did, or you can move through downward facing dog and plank. So we'll inhale, looking up. As we exhale, hinging at those hips, forward fold. We're going to inhale halfway, creating that strength in the spine, keeping our gaze down towards the floor, knees are soft, and then we'll exhale, melting. Hands come back to the floor. We're going to step the left foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground. So check to make sure our knee and ankle are safely in alignment. Hands can stay on the floor, or we can place our hands on that front thigh. Relaxing the shoulders. Exhaling, hands touch the floor. We're going to step the right foot back, coming into your child's pose, staying here in child's, or adding in any variation for your Vinyasa. And if you're flowing, you can flow 2 times. And then we'll all come back into child's pose. So this time we're going to step the left foot forward, finding our lunge on the opposite side, keeping our hands on the earth or on that front thigh. If we have them on the front thigh, making sure we're not collapsing into that front thigh, lifting and drawing the low belly in, and you can even squeeze that rear glute. That's going to help stretch out the front of the thigh on that rear leg. As we exhale, we'll bring hands down to the ground. We're going to tuck our back toes under, coming to runner's lunge, and then taking as many steps as you need to come into forward fold. Inhaling, we'll rise halfway, monkey pose. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, we'll circle, sweep the arms up to the sky, coming into extended mountain pose. And then as we exhale, sitting into those strong legs, fierce pose, chair pose. Inhaling, rising, exhaling, swan dive. This time we'll step the right foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground, uncurling those toes. Choosing to keep your hands on the earth or any position for hands and arms. Maybe lifting the heart and the arms towards the sky. Keeping their shoulders relaxed, softening our gaze. Exhaling, hands touch the floor, stepping back. Your choice of Vinyasa here, or stillness. So every time we have a choice for Vinyasa, remembering that stillness is a choice as well. Meeting in our child's pose, taking a breath, noticing what the body's telling us, listening to the body. So this time we're going to step the right foot to the top of the mat. Inhaling and exhaling. Always paying attention. What's going on? What is the body saying? What do I need in this pose, in this moment? We'll exhale, bringing hands to the floor, lifting that rear knee, and then stepping into forward fold at the front of the mat. Inhaling, monkey pose. And we're going to think about maybe making the spine just a little bit longer here. So imagining that you could create a micro inch more as if you're flying more like a bungee cord. And then we'll exhale, releasing that, just letting the background here. Belly's on the legs. Inhaling as we lift. Exhaling as we sit into those strong legs. Still lifting through the heart, lifting through the chest. We might need to come up a little higher to maintain that. And then inhaling, letting our gaze look towards the sky. Exhaling, forward fold. Now, we're going to inhale monkey pose one more time. And then exhaling, coming into forward fold. So as we step the left foot back, option to lower the knee, or you can keep that knee lifted. And to keep it lifted, you might choose to bring the blocks to frame that front foot, coming into runner's lunge. You can keep the hands on the blocks, or if you'd like, you could lift into a crescent lunge. So only lifting if you feel stable here, knowing it's okay to keep your hands on the blocks. Relaxing our shoulders, relaxing our gaze. Exhaling, hands can come to the blocks or to the floor. And you can step back into down dog or child's pose. You might even choose to be in a down dog with your hands on your blocks. That's always an option. And finding movement or stillness here. So movement might even be pedaling out your dog or coming into a three-legged dog. Or you could go through any version of Vinyasa. So we'll get ready to meet in child's pose. Tune into any sensations, anything that you're noticing. And this time we'll step that left foot to the top of the mat. So finding your lunge of choice. Always making sure the knee and the ankle are in alignment. So if the knee's in front of the foot, reaching around so that you have the knee over the ankle. Exhale, we'll bring our hands to the floor and then stepping to the top of our mat, forward fold. Inhaling, finding that length for the spine, drawing the navel in. Exhaling, lowering. Inhaling, we'll rise. Exhaling, sitting into chair pose. Inhaling, sweeping the arms up. Exhaling, forward fold. We'll inhale, lengthening the spine. Gaze towards the ground. Exhaling, rounding the spine. This time we're going to step the right foot back. And again, you can lower that knee or you can lift it. And in fact, you might choose to lower it because we're going to add in a little bit of a twist. You can always lift back up if you like. So maybe placing a block next to that left foot, placing the hand on the block if you'd like. And we'll inhale here, lengthening first, and then as we exhale, twisting to the left. So you can keep one hand on the block, one hand on the left thigh, or you can maybe lift that left arm toward the sky, maybe lifting the back leg. So finding what feels appropriate to you. Turning your head in either direction. And then we're going to come back to center, untucking those toes, and stepping back. And this time we'll all come into child's pose. So you do have the option to move through Vinyasa, or if you'd like, you can stay here in child's pose, letting the low back and the entire spine lengthen. So if you're flowing, coming back to meet in this child's pose. And then we'll look forward, inhaling, and we'll step the right foot to the top of the mat. So we're getting ready to take our twist to the opposite side. Again, you could choose to place a block on any level. under that left hand. Right hand can come to the thigh. We'll inhale, lengthening, extending the chest and the heart forward. And then as we exhale, twisting to the right. You can stay here. You can even be more upright if that feels better. And then only if you'd like that added challenge of lifting the back knee would we add that. Breathing into this pose. So if you're holding the breath, knowing that maybe you've gone a bit far and you can ease off a tiny bit. And then to come out of this, we'll inhale forward, lowering that back knee if it was up. Placing hands on the ground. Now we'll lift that back knee so we can step into our forward fold. Softening the knees. Inhaling to lift halfway. Exhaling, lowering. We'll inhale, sweeping up. Exhaling, finding chair pose. So finding that strength in your chair. Inhaling, rising. Exhaling, forward fold. We're going to step back into a downward facing dog. So again, you might choose to add some movement here as we come into this pose. And again, knowing that you always have the option to come into child's pose. From here, we're going to inhale forward into a plank. Shoulders above wrists. If this is too much, now you can lower the knees to the ground. You could be in a plank on toes, or you could be in tabletop if kneeling plank is a little too much today. Exhale, we'll shift back into downward facing dog. And here we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a challenge. So this time as we exhale, we're going to bend the knees coming into a bear position. So the knees are maybe an inch off the ground. We're hovering our knees off the floor. We can tap the knees if you need to, lowering them down. And then we'll inhale up. We'll try that a couple more times, remembering finding your level. We'll exhale, hovering if that feels available. You might feel that in your thighs, in your abs, and we'll inhale up. So just one more time. Remember, if it's too much, drop your knees right away. We'll exhale, finding that hover. And then sitting the knees down. Finding child's pose. This time, letting the forehead rest, bringing hands back towards the heels. Tuning into your breath, tuning into any sensation. So that was a lot of work. Noticing how your body is responding after that. What is your body saying to you? We'll take 1 or 2 more breaths right here. And placing hands next to our chest or our head, we're going to lift up and we're going to turn to the side and grab a block if we have one available. So we're going to place our block to our left side. And remember, anytime we use the block, we have 3 different levels. So you can have it on the highest level, the middle level, or the lowest level. And it really just depends on the pose and length of your arms. Different parts, you know, for some of us, we have shorter arms than our legs, which I think most of us do. But depending upon just the ratio of arms to legs and your strength and how you're feeling, you might want to adjust your block for different poses. So we're going to start first by extending the right leg out to the side. We're going to come into gate pose. So the toes and the entire foot is flat on the ground. And really pressing out into that outer edge of that right foot. Hips and shoulders are both facing the same direction. We're going to inhale the left arm up and then exhaling over. So we're getting that side bend again. But now that we've warmed up a little bit, we might find that we can go a little deeper. We might be feeling this crunch a little more. And then inhaling up, exhaling down. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhale to lift the arm, exhaling side bend. And if this is too much on the shoulder, knowing you can bring the hand behind the ear. So if that extended lever is too much, modifying it to fit how you're feeling. You can even keep the arm completely out of the equation if that is what your body needs. So maybe either hand here or hand here. So just focusing right on that core. So as we come out of this, lifting upright once again, we're going to place our hand. Now we're coming into a side plank. So I want to show you a couple options even before you come into that plank. Now, if you'd like, you could place the elbow on the floor and having the forearm in line. Knees can be bent, and this could be your side plank, lifting the hips. So that's one option. So now I'm going to come on to kind of where we were, placing the left hand under the shoulder. So if this is okay for your shoulder and your wrist, you could be here. But if it's too much for either of those, coming to that position we were just at, and this could be your side plank. And remembering this right hand here is optional, so I'm going to keep it at my side for right now. So this is your second option with the knee on the ground. Only if your body is asking for another challenge would you add in that bottom leg. So when we add in the bottom leg, we can stagger the feet, we can stack them one on top of the other. Yogi's choice. And we'll breathe and we'll smile. We'll squeeze those inner thighs together if we're in the lifted option. And then to come out of that, we'll bring the left knee down using the whole right side of the body. We're going to come up. And then we're going to exhale. So if you were on your wrist like I was, we'll give those wrists a little bit of a break. Maybe some circles. You could do figure eights. So anytime we do anything using the wrist, we might want to give them a little vacation. Another option, and I don't have it here, would be to use a dumbbell, and actually I have one off to the side, but you could actually do that instead of using a block, using a dumbbell and holding on to that. I know that that's an option as well. So as we come to this other side, remember when we get to the side plank part, you might choose to come down to your side, and I'll show you that again when we get there. So first, left leg extended, hips and shoulders are facing the same direction for the most part. There's a little bit of a turn here because it would be really hard to get everything to the front. But for the most part, we're facing the front. We're going to inhale that right arm up, exhaling, taking that side bend here. So you might notice a little different sensation on this side, and then coming back down. So moving with your breath, inhaling up, exhaling, taking that crunch, opening the right side, inhaling up, and then exhaling to lower the arm. And so you might even be noticing maybe this shoulder feels a little different. So we can notice these things for all different parts of the body as we're strengthening and moving and adjusting our body through these poses. So remembering, if you're taking the side plank, if you want to take it down on the forearm, making sure the elbow and shoulder are in alignment. You can have the knees bent, kind of 90 degrees. The feet are in line with the hips, and you can lift up. So just lifting those hips away from the ground, maybe lifting that arm, that could be your side plank. So then seeing our other two options, right hand on the block, and you don't have to use a block, but it brings the floor closer to us. You always want to make sure if we're coming into this version where we are using the hand in line with the shoulder, that they are truly in alignment. That's going to protect the shoulder and the wrist. We'll inhale up. This left hand can be up towards the sky or down to the hip. And only if you want that extra little something would you extend the bottom leg. So there's no right or wrong. It doesn't matter what it looks like. All that really matters is what does it feel like in your body. If it feels like a challenge, you're at the right level. You don't want it so challenging that you can't breathe. So lowering that right knee, inhaling up, and again, a little bit of vacation for the wrists if you are on your wrist. We want to give them a little bit of love and attention too. Let's shake them out. So how do you do? So that was a challenging series. So we're going to take a moment to check in child's pose. So extending those arms forward and again, lengthening through the spine. Noticing if maybe you're sinking a little deeper, if your hips are a little closer to your heels in this child's pose. Or anything else you might be noticing that might be a little different in this pose and this time that we're visiting this pose. From here, we're going to come into a lateral flexion. We're going to walk our hands over to the right side. So a little different way of opening through the torso. Inhaling, walking our hands through center, over to the other side. And back to center, we're going to lift into a downward facing dog. Engaging the core, so drawing the navel in towards the spine, engaging glute lock as we lift up through the pelvic floor, looking to the hands, using that strong core, thinking about this movement as we walk our feet forward, thinking of it coming from the belly button from your navel. So your abs are actually moving your feet forward, not your legs. And inhale, rising. Exhaling, hands come to the heart. So we're going to do a little bit of a chest expansion here. We're going to open the heart. And we're going to think about being, the superheroes that we are. So we're going to inhale from the left arm and right arm. So you're making a big, beautiful cape. Your cape is behind you. And really imagining those shoulder blades drawing in towards the spine. So as much as we're opening the front of the body, we're creating a little bit of a back bend here. And we're going to exhale, giving ourselves a big hug. Might even round over. Maybe coming into chair pose and giving ourselves a little hug. And we're going to inhale, opening that wide. So now we can come back into that superhero pose, or we can hug an imaginary beach ball, or maybe even hold onto the backs of the elbows, holding on the elbows behind the back. So several choices, and then the last one, and this is only if you have enough flexibility in your shoulders, is interlacing the fingers behind the back. So lots of different choices. And again, one is not right or more right than the others, and they all feel different. So what we're doing right now, or what I'm doing right now, feels way different in my body than when I did the superhero. So this, I feel a little more in my chest and shoulders, whereas the superhero, with my super cape, I was feeling it more in my shoulders, like the back of my shoulder blades and my upper back. So depending upon what your body needs, picking and choosing. And then we're going to release this. We're going to let this go. A big inhale. And then we're just going to forward fold. Hang here for a moment. Letting the head hang heavy, shaking your head no. And then nodding. Yes. Keeping these soft as we inhale, lifting all the way back up. We're going to get ready for our balance portion of the practice. So this balance, we're going to visit and hang out in chair pose. And as we do this, if you want to focus more on the strength of your glutes and your thighs, you might choose to flow more through chair. But if you want to definitely get in that extra added aspect of balance, which I recommend you at least try a little bit, then we'll challenge ourselves a bit. But of course, you always have the option to hold on to something if you need to. So we're going to start first with just a few rounds of flow in chair. And we'll check to make sure both of our feet are facing the same direction. They're parallel. We have equal weight in both sides. And we're going to inhale and then exhale, sitting in the chair. So I'm moving with my arms, but your arms are totally optional. Sitting hips back and down, so sitting into that imaginary chair behind us. Keeping the heart lifted. Not worry about how low you get. Make sure we keep that lift in the chest. If it feels better, you can place your hands on your thighs, at the heart, or even in front of you for a little bit of balance. So as we decide if we want to challenge our balance a little bit, we might start to shift more of our weight into this right leg, starting to lift the heel on the left side. So this could be your balance, or you might even shift a little bit more and lift that foot entirely. So you can tap it down if you need to. Keeping the hips in line with each other, the knees in line with each other. Maybe really challenging strength coming up. So if you did that, you could add in any other movement that you might like. But remember, you can lower this foot down to the ground at any point. And if it's still lifted, we'll just lower it slowly. We'll come back into that chair. So we're back in chair pose. And again, you can decide to flow here a little bit, or you could lift that right heel, starting to have more weight on this left side. And just by having the heel lifted, we are already in a balance. We're really strengthening this left glute. This left thigh is getting a little more work. So you can stay here if that's where you'd like to be, or you can lift that heel entirely. So you gotta be careful. When we add a movement, it changes everything with the balance. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. So you can lift up, maybe come into position with the knee out to the side, coming back in front. We always have the option of bringing it behind us. And lift back up again. And tap down, we'll come back in the chair. Maybe move one or two more times through a flowing chair. You might have already done this a bunch of times, so if that's too much, you can maybe just go through the sun breath portion. And just one more chair pose, polishing off those hips and thighs. This is like doing a whole bunch of squats. You think about it. Now inhale, reaching the arms up, exhaling, lowering them, adding in any movement your body might need right here. So that could be a little twist, or use some hip circles, making your hips, your ankles, your thighs, everything for holding you in place, making your whole body, allowing you to balance. And even if you fall out of balance, knowing that balance can change from day to day. Some days it's spot on, and other days it's a little trickier. Just working with what you've got today. We're getting ready to come back to the front of our mats. And inhale, up the sky, exhaling, hinging forward. We're going to step back into a downward facing dog. Getting ready to come forward into plank. Remember, you can lower those knees if you need to. If you're up here on toes, or if you're on knees, we're going to lower down very slowly. So challenging yourself to see how slowly can you lower. Keeping control, not letting the belly sag. And then untucking those toes. From here, we're going to lift into Sphinx pose. So we'll first check to make sure that our elbows are in line with our shoulders. And the way that we can test that is by holding on to our biceps. And then bringing the forearms down to the floor. Fingertips are spread wide. Legs are long. And a couple of things that we can check in on is making sure that we're not just punching down and that our belly, everything's just draping. This isn't meant to be a super restful pose. So it doesn't look like we're doing a whole lot, but if we're paying attention and really engaging the body, we'll get a lot out of it. So again, fingertips wide, belly button is lifting away from the floor. So you can see you might be again, just collapsing. Or you can lift that belly in and up. So if you lift the navel in and up, already you're going to feel something. And lifting up and out of the shoulder, so rather than letting the head and neck collapse into the shoulders, We're getting a nice back bend here. And again, the legs are long. You might tap those toes for a second. And lifting that belly away from the floor. We're opening the front of the torso, and we're getting a nice back bend. So strengthening the upper back, the entire spine. And then we're going to lower, placing one ear on the floor. So whichever one you'd like, turn your head to one direction. And then we're going to either repeat what we just did, or if you'd like, we can come into a variation of Locust Pose. So for Locust Pose, we can place our hands underneath our forehead. You always have the option of bringing the arms alongside the body as well, but for today, maybe choosing to place the hands underneath the forehead. Again, you could revisit space if you prefer. And then, if you are choosing Locust though, keeping those legs long, we'll lift the upper body, keeping our gaze down towards the ground, and then only if you'd like adding in the lower body. Inhaling, lifting the legs, lifting the head. Remember, you can hang out in Sphinx if you prefer. If you're here with me in Locust, arms or legs lifted or both. And maybe one more inhale up, exhale to stay. And then we'll inhale and exhale, roll down. Turning your head maybe to the opposite side this time. And then if you'd like, you can lift your feet, letting your lower legs sway side to side, almost as if they were seaweed on the bottom of the ocean. So just noticing the work that you've just done, strengthening the spine. We'll come back to center. Pressing up, so we're going to place hands next to the shoulders, and we're going to do a reverse push-up here, or a reverse plank coming into a kneeling plank. And you can go through child's pose, or you can go through cat and cow. Whichever would feel more helpful to the spine right now. Getting ready to make your way onto your back so you can come up and roll to one side. Or we can do our C curve. So again, it's only if you feel the strength in your core. If you prefer coming onto your side, or if you'd like, you can extend the arms forward, engaging the core, but we're going to round the spine, almost like the letter C. And the way that we can test this, it's always fun, is maybe coming forward. So can you rock back and forward? This time we'll go all the way back. Hugging the knees in. Giving them a little thank you squeeze. You can circle the knees in one direction, getting a massage from the lower back. So after some of what we just did, that made you really good. We're back, or maybe even if you had a long day sitting in a chair. So now we're going to lift the legs to the sky. We're going to do a scissor maneuver. And for this, your knees can be bent a little or a lot. And we'll lower the left leg either an inch away from the floor or an inch away from the other leg. So it doesn't really matter how low you go. It's all up to you. If, as you're lowering your left leg down, you're starting to feel some discomfort in the lower back and coming up a little higher. So finding your position here, and then we'll inhale and we'll switch. We're going to make this a little bit more rhythmic. So we'll tap twice, and then we'll inhale up, and then we'll tap twice on the other side. So as we tap, we're exhaling, and then we'll switch. So we're really challenging our core as we're doing that tapping motion. challenging ourselves to stay stable in space. But remember, you can, if you'd like, you could be a little more bent. So you might be here. You can even tap the foot on the floor if you'd like, or if you had a block there, you could do that. So finding your level. If you feel like you want a little more challenge, you could lift the head and neck. But if that feels uncomfortable, then keeping the head and the neck on the ground. Holding on maybe at the calf or the thigh. So adjusting and taking a break anytime you need to. We'll do maybe one more on each side if you're still moving here. Actually, I'll finish it up here so I feel balanced. Knees into the chest, nice big hug. Maybe forehead to knees. Lowering everything down to the ground. Placing the feet on the earth. And we're going to lift the left leg to the sky. We'll take the ankle just above the right knee, coming into an upside down pigeon pose. So if you prefer, you can go into pigeon pose, or you can stay here in this figure 4. And the right foot can stay on the ground, or if you'd like, you can lift it. And we're feeling probably a nice stretch into that left hip and thigh area, maybe the lower back. We'll keep that top foot flexed to protect the knee. Breathing. So always remembering, if you're holding your breath at any point, time to back out of the pose a little bit. And a little gentler. We'll place that right foot on the floor if it was lifted, and we're going to turn this into a twist. So letting that left foot come all the way over. We're still in our figure 4, and we're twisting here. Now, if this feels awkward or uncomfortable in any way, coming into whatever twist feels good to your body. So you can stack the knees if that feels better. And you can turn your head in any direction. So pay attention to how that feels in your neck. Remember, the neck is part of our spine, it's our cervical spine. So we want to make sure that we're allowing our neck to get some mobility and flexibility too. If we were looking to one side, we'll lift our gaze back up to the ceiling, and we're going to bring our legs back to center. Uncross them if they're still crossed. Just pause and notice. Notice how both sides feel. And then we'll take that all to the other side. So right leg lifts. Bring the right ankle to the left thigh. For our figure 4. Whichever variation feels good. And it might be a little different on this side. So noticing what your body needs here. Not needing to do the same thing exactly on both sides. Breathing into that right hip. And option for your twist. Left foot comes down. You can let that right foot stamp on the floor. And again, if this feels awkward in the figure 4 twist, finding whatever twist does feel good. Just another breath or 2 here as we get ready to come into our final relaxation. So as we do that, you might choose to add in any last little bit of movement or stillness that your body needs. So if there's a pose that your body needs or a position before you come into Shavasana, you can take that. And then when you're ready, allowing the body to settle into a place of stillness and ease. Imagining any residual tension or tightness in the body just dissolving into the ground. Softening all the muscles of the face and jaw. Letting the back of the scalp soften. Forehead relax. Letting this be the most important pose of your practice today. The time your body integrates and absorbs all that you've done. When you're ready, bring some movement back into your body. Very gently turn to one side. Your knees bent. And using your hands to press up into a comfortable seat. We'll inhale and then exhale. Taking a moment to honor your body, honor all that it's given you today, all that it gives you every single day. The divine light within me honors the divine light within you. Namaste.